morning, it's a vlog ride. We're heading into work, and I said last time I was going to talk about post-colonialism, and we're going to do that, and then we're going to segue into something else. It segues actually really nicely, so yay me. So I guess let's just get started. So post-colonialism is a subset of a much broader group of theories called cultural studies. I won't get into that right now, but post-colonialism as a critical discipline, as a critical theory, is concerned with two broad groups. And it is concerned with the interaction of those two broad groups, and it is concerned with the media, literature, whatever that comes out of those groups. And it looks at the colonizers, the imperialists, and from that group it looks to see, works that are produced by that group. How does imperialism or colonialism inform it? How does it, how is it reflected in that work? It also looks at, things like cultural exchange and cultural appropriation that come with colonization and imperialism. And it looks at how that changes the imperialist or colonizing culture. So that's broad overview of that side. The other broad group that it looks at the groups that are colonized, the powers that are colonized, those that fall under, by force, because let's be honest here, imperial powers. And it looks for the same kind of stuff. What work is being produced, how is, imperialism and colonization reflected in those works, how does it inform those works. It also looks at cultural exchange, cultural appropriation, all of that in those groups. It also is concerned with what voices are actually being heard from those groups. Is it actually the people being colonized that are being heard, or is it somebody else? So there is within post-colonialism, questions about who's speaking, who's being heard. And the questions that get asked in the framework of this theory are, who's conquering, who's doing the colonization, what traditions are being lost, what traditions are being forced onto them, what things are the colonizing group, adopting from the groups that they are colonizing, what is being appropriated from them, and what effect does that have. So when we talk about cultural appropriation, we are talking about, a group who is colonized, who has been part of an empire or was part of an empire, and how pieces of their culture are being taken by that, colonizing or imperialist group and being used. And academically, cultural appropriation is actually kind of neutral. Not every type of cultural appropriation is harmful, but it can be. It is most harmful when the cultural appropriation robs the culture that whatever that thing comes from, when it robs them of their ability to utilize it. If you take, stories from an indigenous culture of a region and you go, I'm going to publish those stories because I think those stories should be heard. I think they're very important. Okay. You white person over here in America or England or France or wherever you are, and let's say, you know, it's the cultural stories of a group that is from Central Africa. Okay? It's great that you discovered these stories and you want them to be heard, but you've just robbed them of their ability to publish those stories for themselves and reap benefit from that publication. So that is like the simplest example I can provide of cultural appropriation gone bad. Cultural appropriation that is neutral. You know, that can be a little bit harder, but, you know, neutral cultural appropriation would be something like, you know, going, hey, I like this style of clothing, we're going to start, you know, doing that here too. You're not necessarily robbing anybody of anything. There are ways that that kind of adoption, that kind of appropriation can be done better, but you're not necessarily doing anybody harm that way. You can be disrespecting them if you don't understand that this bit of clothing, this, you know, style that you are looking at, has some kind of significance, spiritual significance or whatever, and you're not respecting that. That is offensive, and that negates the otherwise neutralness of what you're doing. But, you know, if you're talking about normal, everyday clothing that people wear, and you go, that's really cool and it looks really comfortable, and you go home and you go, hey, we should start doing this. That's not harmful to anybody. And people like to call it cultural exchange. I don't because if you keep it with the label of cultural appropriation, because there is a lot of negative connotation that comes with that, because that term makes you pause and go, hold on a second, it makes you ask the question of, am I doing harm with this? And if the answer is no, if there is not harm being done in the line of, you know, that culture to you having that thing, you're good. I don't like using cultural exchange because somebody is applying that label to the thing and you don't know why they're applying it. But because you're told, no, cultural exchange is neutral, you're not going to ask those questions of that thing from that exchange. And there are lots of subtle questions that you can ask where something that seems innocent and seems harmless isn't. And that's why I don't like treating cultural appropriation just as a bad thing and going, well, the stuff that's not bad, we're going to give it another name. No. If you're in America, if you're in most of Europe, you should always be asking that question, whatever label is put on. And I just worry, like I said, that the label makes us lazy and has us not asking the question, and we just trust that somebody labeled it cultural exchange and we're being honest about it. So there you go. You got my hot take on it. So alright, that actually is going to segue us into what I wanted to talk about, because if you are a white person, and especially if you are a white woman, you have just experienced cultural appropriation. Sort of. Not really. But you kind of got a dose of what cultural appropriation feels like. To people who have their culture appropriated. And that is, of course, the Little Mermaid. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that Twitter shitstorm. So, there's a hashtag on Twitter, not my Ariel, not my Little Mermaid. So, Disney being Disney is continuing on with this trend of turning its older animated movies into live action. Which, I mean, okay, whatever. Like, a lot of movies I can see the point of. I don't see the point of doing that to The Lion King, right? I don't. I just don't. I can't. It's just, I can't. Yeah. But, although, I mean, there is that one lion actor who is just great, and I wish they would have chosen him for adult Simba. It just pisses me off so bad. And don't get me started on working with cubs. You think working with human children is bad? Get where I'm going here, right? There's no freaking point in making a live-action Lion King movie. Anyway. They're doing a live-action Little Mermaid, because of course they are. And they chose their Ariel. And it is Halle Bailey, who, up until this, I never actually heard of. I will freely admit that she is not a young woman I am familiar with. Halle, did I say Halle? Halle Bailey. And so in the stuff announcing it, they're like, you know, she's got, you know, the innocent look that we want for Ariel. She's got, you know, this youthful exuberance. She has got an incredible voice. So, like, everything they want to project in Ariel, that they projected in Ariel as an animated character, they have in this one actress. So, there you go. She's perfect for the part. But, she's African American. And white people have been just losing their minds over it. And it's like, okay. Any white person losing their mind over this and does not understand where cultural appropriation is a problem, look at how you feel right now. Every time stories are taken from another culture and whiteized, that's how those people feel. So, I could just tell you right now, sit down and shut up and deal with it. There's going to be an African-American girl playing Ariel. Grow up. Every other culture has to deal when we put a white person into a role that culturally was theirs. Now you know how it feels. But I'm actually not going to say that. I could. I could totally say that. Or I can go, just stop being idiots. Because it's a mermaid. Yes, this is a story that was created by a European dude, and he put together these descriptions of the character. Mermaids do not exist, okay? There's not a historical record that you can pull up to go, this is what a mermaid was supposed to look like. There is no region that mermaids come from. There is no culture from which, they draw, their skin tone. There is no melatonin to determine how light or how dark their skin tone is. They are made up creatures, 100%. There are a few different cultures that have different legends about ocean-dwelling humanoid creatures that we would call collectively mermaids. The Little Mermaid went with a specific type. The whole reason that the Little Mermaid is white is because a European white dude wrote the story, and he was judging beauty based on Eurocentric standards. That's it. That is the whole reason that character, that made-up character that is a mythological creature, is even white. It is arbitrary. There is zero reason that the character has to stay white. Period. There is no logical reason that you have to have the Little Mermaid be light-skinned. So, yeah. That's why I'm like, cultural appropriation. Sorta. It's not like it's a historical figure who was a mix of two non-white races and was portrayed by a blonde-haired woman. It's a made-up character. It's not like it is a character that is supposed to be, written by an ethnic group and is supposed to be of this ethnic group being portrayed by a white woman or a white man. It is a mythological creature. The whole reason that it gets given certain traits is because of that culture's ideas of beauty. And in the case of the Little Mermaid, you're looking at Eurocentric ideas of beauty. That's it. That's it. So, there's no reason for people to be like, oh, this is whatever. It's not. It's not whatever. It's not stealing your culture. It's not doing anything except giving this young woman a chance to shine in a role that she seems to be pretty natural for. So, let her do it. In peace, ideally. So yeah. That's pretty much what I wanted to talk about there. If you have any thoughts you want to share about Post Colonialism, or about The Little Mermaid and the live action reboot or remake that's coming up, then by all means, comment, hit me up on Twitter if you want. Please, if you enjoyed this, like, share, subscribe. I really would appreciate that. And, how does the talk about The Little Mermaid fit in? Think about your history. Because, yeah, all of that falls into post-colonialism pretty well. Because we are talking about a group of people that we forced to come over to this country. And we don't always treat them very well at all. It's gotta suck to work hard your entire life and to be discriminated against because of the color of your skin, And then when people work to stop that discrimination, to then be told, well, you're being given a handout. That's gotta suck really bad. Like, you can tell with the way my skin's glowing in the sunlight, that is not a problem I face. I face other problems being a woman, but I don't face that problem. So I can't imagine what it's like to be like that. But I do know what it's like to look at a character on the screen and go, why wasn't she utilized better? Why, in order for her to be included in the story, would you have to add justification for why she's not breaking the story when nobody else is? Why? Or to look at the screen and see the absence of my gender and hear, well, we couldn't make any of these characters female because that would just require too much explanation. No, it wouldn't. You just make them female. Explanation done. They have tits or whatever. So, yeah. Right now, people are looking at the selection of an actress, and people are saying, you have to explain yourself on that selection. And I do know what that feels like. I can't wait to see the movie. I hope it's going to be good. Anyway, like, share, subscribe, comment, peace.